Elena didn't notice it right away. The message had been sent hours ago. She hadn't been waiting. At least, that's what she told herself. The day had moved quietly, like most of her days did. Coffee in the morning, a few emails, a short walk in the afternoon. Nothing unusual, nothing that required attention. Her phone had stayed on the table most of the time, untouched, and that had become normal. There was a time when she checked it constantly, every few minutes. Every small vibration meant something. Every silence meant something more. But that version of her had changed, or at least she believed it had. It wasn't until later that evening that she picked up her phone again. No urgency, no expectation, just a simple habit before the day ended. She unlocked the screen, opened the conversation, and that's when she saw it. Seen. Just one word, small, neutral, but impossible to ignore. He had read it. Elena stared at the screen for a moment. Not reacting immediately, just observing. Her message was still there, unchanged. The words she had typed earlier now felt slightly different. Not wrong, not embarrassing, just exposed. Like something that had been quietly released into the world and left there, unanswered. She leaned back slightly, the soft glow of the screen reflecting in her eyes. Outside, the sky had already darkened. Lights in the buildings across the street were beginning to turn on, one by one. Each window a small glimpse into someone else's life, someone else's evening, someone else's story. But inside her apartment, everything felt still. Elena read the message again. Not his, hers, the one she had sent. It wasn't long, it wasn't emotional, just simple, careful, safe. And yet, it had been enough to reopen something she had spent time learning to close. She placed the phone on the table, then picked it up again, almost immediately. Not because she expected a reply, but because something inside her needed to check again, as if the word might change, as if silence could correct itself. It didn't. Seen. Still there. Still quiet. Still final. She let out a small breath she didn't realize she had been holding, and for a moment, something familiar returned. Not pain, not exactly, but a memory of it, the feeling of waiting, the space between sending and receiving, the quiet tension of not knowing. She stood up and walked toward the window. The city outside was alive in a different way now. Night had its own rhythm, slower, softer, less demanding. Cars moved through the streets with less urgency. People walked more quietly. Everything felt calmer. Elena rested her hand lightly against the glass, cold, real, grounding. She thought about how many times she had been in this exact situation before, waiting for a response, reading into silence, trying to understand what wasn't being said, trying to find meaning in absence. But something felt different now, subtle, but real. She wasn't anxious, she wasn't overthinking, she wasn't creating stories in her mind. She was simply aware, aware that he had seen it and chosen not to respond. And for the first time, that felt like enough information. She walked back to the table, picked up the phone one more time, looked at the screen, and then she locked it, gently, without hesitation, without checking again. She placed it down, screen facing away, not as a reaction, not as a decision, just naturally, as if there was nothing left to look for. Elena sat down again. The room felt the same. The silence felt the same. But something inside her had shifted, not dramatically, not in a way anyone else would notice, but enough. Enough to understand something she hadn't before. A response isn't always words. Sometimes it's silence, and silence can be clear. It can be direct. It can say exactly what needs to be said, without saying anything at all. Elena leaned back slightly, letting the quiet of the evening settle around her. She didn't reach for the phone again. She didn't wait. She didn't wonder. Because sometimes closure doesn't come from what someone says. It comes from what they don't. And for the first time, that felt complete.